January, February.
In order. Yeah. Our meeting today is to review our upcoming agenda and any other issues that anybody might want to bring up, but we'll start off with the agenda, if that's all right with everyone. All right. And we're bringing it up on the screen right now as we speak. Master of Ceremonies, Doug. Take it easy.
Yeah, great meeting. Motion to adjourn. As Kathy said, let's make it simple, right, Kathy? Probably just kind of buzzing through these to the first public hearings. We continued that public hearing on the CDBG CV. I am waiting for direction from you guys in terms of whether or not we're going to, before I can submit the next step for what I have to do with CDBG, if we're going to submit anything for the business COVID recovery. So I need some direction from the town board in terms of that, because that changes basically the submission. So I just need to
So
know.
your question is, we're submitting for the playground,
So,
but you want to know, should we submit for business recovery in addition to playground?
right, because it all has to be part of the same submission.
And so as I understood it, we didn't qualify for money except for certain things. Right, we didn't qualify because we weren't damaged by COVID.
No,
as a
so,
town.
no,
That's
so
the
that's
case.
separate, that's separate. That's nothing to do with this.
Okay, that's not this grant.
Right, we are working on more or less, right, Kate? I gotta get Kate information on a FEMA thing that's for the town, but
Okay.
that's nothing to do with this. So this would be a small business recovery fund for small businesses that were hampered or harmed by the COVID-19 situation. And the state has been trying to get municipalities to apply for this money and make this available. And like we had talked about, would administer this through the LDC. But I either need to put it on basically what's called a consultation form or leave it off. I would just need direction.
You have to name specific.
Yeah,
businesses
no,
in this.
no, it's just small business recovery, $300,000 year one, $300,000 year two. It's that simple.
And how would it be decided which businesses would get it? Because one thing I could see is that this could become like a controversy. That the town had this money and they gave it to Joe Blow's business, but they didn't give it to Cindy Lou's business. And that, and there's a reason why, because so-and-so is friends with Doug. I mean, I feel like when we get in the business of trying to give out free money, we run the risk of having a lot of people happy or unhappy.
So there's very, very specific requirements that the state requires and the guidelines and the rules and everything. And they have to say ultimately, yes, the business qualifies or no, they don't. If we have the LDC do it, the LDC has the ability to work with those businesses and work through those parameters. There's all kinds of what I would say hoops the business has to jump through if they're going to pursue that. Or if the board wishes to just leave it off, we just leave it off. I just need to know what I'm putting on the form.
Businesses have been able to apply for this themselves, haven't they?
Yes, businesses have qualified that they could do, but this is a separate pot of money that the federal government gave to the states that the state is trying to push out into the different regions.
The businesses, I would assume the hoops are probably similar if they apply themselves or apply through this program. So if they've already applied and been turned down, they're probably not going to qualify with this. If they've applied and received something, then they're ineligible. So
They're maybe not ineligible. You can get various different things. I know that because I have.
Yeah, I don't know about the uneligible. I mean, if they're uneligible, they're not eligible, right?
Yeah.
But if they're eligible, it's a matter of whether or not they submitted and went through the process that they need, or whether there would be anything that would allow them to qualify under this other program. I don't know I've never submitted a small business recovery, so I don't know the requirements.
Kind of thing the town ever did.
Well, if it would be administered by the LDC and take us kind of out of the equation as the determiner of you get it, you don't. Is there any harm in applying for it? Is there a downside to? I mean, if nothing happens, nothing happens.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. You just end up returning the money if nobody qualifies for it, right? The LDC, yes, could absolutely administer it for us. The town, if the town is the applicant, the town is responsible to make sure it gets, all done correctly and everything, but the LDC could absolutely administer it all for us. And they're very specific, Division of Housing and Community Renewal. That's what all this falls under, and the Community Development Block Grant, that's CDBG. And then CV stands for the CARES, or the COVID relief piece of this. They are extremely specific on what you can do, it can't do, and they're constantly engaged with it. I can tell you, we have a lot of experience working with them, and we know the particulars of HCR and CDBG and how that works. So is Matt Horn, who's obviously the executive director of the LDC. So we know the ins and outs. They've done this for, Matt was telling me that they have been working with some other communities that are also going after this. The city of Canandaigua has not applied for this. So, it could either be just for town residents, or it could be for both, or the city could also apply. I mean, there's still a lot of moving pieces, I guess is what I would say to this puzzle, but whether or not we do this.
So it seems that if we apply, it should be for town business, whether they live in the town, or,
Mhm.
in the city or someplace else.
Right.
It sounds like there's a downside to adding that into it may complicate the application. I mean, there's a little more writing to do, or a little more.
Well, the administration of it after the fact is the part that
Well,
feels like,
A little bit, but we're gonna have that regardless. Like the playground, by submitting, for instance, the rubberized surfacing, like that's a big one, right? That rubberized surfacing for the playground, it's gonna be probably $350,000, because we'll have to add in it with prevailing wages and all that stuff. We have to jump through all the hoops already for the NEPA and all that stuff associated with all that. Adding this on doesn't
oh, I meant
really.
after the fact, you know what I mean, all the administration of giving it out, making sure that people are qualified, all of that, jumping through the hoops.
Right.
I mean, I don't think whatever everyone else thinks, because I could see upside, but I can also see it's a lot of administration to run a program where you're trying to figure out who should get the money. And if LDC is doing it, hopefully they have the funding in place to be able to fund their staff to manage it for us. Or maybe we'd end up getting a bill later. Is what I.
No. The LDC, we have a contract with
Okay.
the executive director, so that's not an issue. Kathy, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to weigh in. I mean, we need to have this conversation at town board meeting too, officially by the record, but right. Right, absolutely.
quickly.
But we need to repeat it again, right? Yeah.
Just quickly, I wanted to,
We can't hear you.
I think you're on mute,
I'm not. Hold on.
or your volume is down.
I can hear Kathy just fine on my
Can't
end.
hear Lindsay either. So that, oh yeah, the speakers.
Sorry.
Hang on, we're just making an adjustment. Try now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering, I was talking and nobody was like,
Yeah.
"Hello?"
Sorry about that.
I know I had researched this when it came up before. So I want to review what the qualifications are. And I know there's, a lot of this is geared towards lower income businesses and workers and things like that, but I'm gonna have to review that again. My concern with the LDC administering a program is that we'd have to get the city to agree, right? Because we'd be using joint resources just for the town. There may be some component with this grant that the LDC is going for, but I think we would definitely need the approval of the city to have the LDC doing this work. But I'm not opposed to it in theory, but I do want to review what exactly the qualifications are before I commit one way or another.
So in terms of that, Kathy, so I don't really think that there's an issue with the city. It would just need to be approved by the LDC Board of Directors, which I brought it up
That's
at
what
the
I meant.
I brought it up at the last meeting and they said yes, so, yeah.
So you
Okay.
have that the LDC seems favorably
Yeah,
inclined to
yeah.
take this on.
But again, it's
Well,
kind of
you
one
need-
half dozen or the other. We can either,
Know by Monday.
I just need to know whether or not to put it on the consultation form, truthfully, that's.
Didn't
Okay.
we vote on this last month?
No.
Oh.
For this, no, we had a conversation. Remember, we had that special meeting the week after the town board meeting for the
Uh-huh.
public hearing because we were going to submit that. And so this particular piece of this, it was left still a question. I think Kathy, we had talked about even exactly what you just said. There was a comment made about want to look into it more and that sort of thing. So I haven't been able to submit the consultation form because I just need to know whether or not I'm including it. I mean, I guess I would say if there's any reservation, skip it so that I can move forward with the playground. I just need to be able to do something I haven't been able to do yet.
And are we applying with the playground for as much as we can get out of this?
Oh, believe me, yes, I will.
Right, okay.
I will
'Cause I feel
squeeze
like
that
there's,
grape as
you know,
much
there's
as I
so much
can.
around that playground that could be done.
The
Um,
trouble is anything that's already done doesn't qualify.
Right.
So,
you
yeah.
know, we-
And
so, you know,
Yeah, the building doesn't qualify, but ADA pieces of it do. So that's where I'm like trying to get
My
involved.
recollection was there was a deadline, but this comes up like every month or so there. So
Correct, Kathy. Yes, it comes up at the first of each month. I have to submit by the first of each month. So the next submission would be November 1st. So as long as you guys can give me
So I
some
have
direction on
Monday.
Monday, I can get it together for November 1st.
Yeah, I'm okay with putting it in. I mean, I think, you know, I think the risk is we put it in and we give it back because we don't have anyone apply or nobody qualifies or something, but at least we tried and then. And so long as the LDC is fair and impartial about how they disperse the money, I can't see it blowing up into something that makes it sound terrible. And be a business.
and I do recall there were very specific things
Criteria.
that had to be covered. So it's not like a free for all to get the
Correct.
money.
Correct.
Okay.
The next one would be the public hearing on the budget. I have had little to hardly any questions, a few questions, so I don't.
Does anyone still have any remaining questions on the budget that they need to ask? Okay. I think everybody's got their answers. We're hopefully good to go on that.
So then we get into resolutions. Probably the most difficult things on your agenda are the first two continued resolutions
Right.
relating to the digital signage. I haven't had a chance to go through again that revised attachment, which I know I need to do today. So I know there were a lot of that. You saw the red line copy that I emailed out to you guys.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of changes associated with all that. So hopefully
Settling down.
I know the size, what they sent was exactly what we talked about in the last meeting. So the sizing issue, I think
Went away.
that's been resolved. It's a matter, and Kathy, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it yet or not, but it's a lot of the language specifically that we had been talking about and everything.
Got cleaned up.
So,
So yeah, we just need to reread it with a fine tooth comb and.
right.
Did you, have you scanned it at all, the most recent?
I glanced at it, but
Okay,
I got to
great.
go through it in detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we get into the monthly financial reports, the transfers. Kate, I don't think there was much in the way of transfers, was there?
There were some pretty small things, just a little bit like a dental, a little from medical to dental. Nothing major.
The next resolution is adoption of the budget. Everybody's taxes remain flat except for Joe's, that doubles.
Glad to help.
Thanks, Joe. The next resolution, actually, I combined both the town clerk and the highway superintendent both were surplusing stuff, so I combined it into one resolution, but it's just, I think the biggest thing is there was a parks truck and the water van, I think.
Yeah.
And those are two biggest things.
That Parks truck probably
there rust
needs to,
bucket?
yes, it needs to go straight to the junkyard, but
Somebody
anyway.
will take it. They're hard to find right now.
The next resolution is the dental care program for next year. Lindsay, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to this.
No, nothing to add. I mean, it did increase, but that was to be expected, but it wasn't by much.
Lindsay, the next one is also you, appointment of a part-time clerk. Oh, this is the one that's basically stationed in highway, right? Lindsay, do you want to touch on this?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
we've got-
so for the 2022 budget, we did put in for a highway and partially town hall clerk full-time, but we had money in the budget this year to hire on that person as part-time to get them started and trained. So it'll be coming out of our clerk account line that we have right at the bottom there. So we did select a great candidate with a lot of experience, and I think it's going to make a great addition to highway and town hall.
So this person, let's just talk about this for a second. So this person would be located in the highway building with Caitlin in that office area to provide support. And basically because when Caitlin's not there, everything falls on Jim answering all the phones and everything water related and everything else. And then helping the guys and everything else. So this person would be there, but also trained by Kate in terms of all the finance pieces, being able to put in the highway bills and the highway expenditures and all that stuff from the workstation back there and everything.
And was this person like a civil service person? Like, did you have, so you had 12 people from the civil service pool apply for this?
Lindsay, you wanna?
Yeah, so it's not, there was no exam needed. So the county posted it on their site, and then we interviewed our top 5 candidates out of the 12 applications that we received, and then selected Sarah.
All right. This is great to see so many people want.
Did you say it's gonna turn into a full-time job?
Yes. Since we're
So
talking
when
about,
when it goes to full-time, do they need to reapply? Because then it falls under the top 3 on the list or whatever, I think.
No, it's not part of civil service. It's not
It's
competitive.
exempt. It's exempt. It's non-competitive.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
All right,
non-competitive.
thanks.
Yeah.
and since we're talking about hiring people, so last week or 2 weeks ago, we were interviewing people to replace the MEO at the highway. And I did have a resolution on the agenda, but that person at the last minute backed out.
Oh,
But I have a next person who we also liked, did accept it. So at the board meeting, I'm gonna bring up a resolution
that has the.
that has the information for you to approve hiring this person Monday night, okay?
All right.
So just be aware of that.
Yep, real
just-
time changes.
Well-
Yeah, what can you do?
Yeah, but we did have, I think, 6, Lindsay,
Wow.
so,
Yeah, and that was just what was approved. There were a bunch of other applications for that specific position too. So we are seeing an increase in applicants, which is great.
Perfect.
That's all I have.
Glad to hear it. It's a great place to work.
Any questions on any of that? Anybody? No. The next one is a new local law. This actually sets a public hearing on the new scenic view shed overlay district. Gary, I don't know if anything we've the ordinance committees beat this to death for what, 6 years now?
Right. This was
Yeah.
one of the first meetings I was on the board for, we were talking about scenic overlooks and views.
A lot further than that,
Yeah.
you throw in Ridgeline.
Yeah, it was Ridgeline.
Decades.
Yeah, this is something that, went through the ordinance committee and, finally we got something to, hopefully going to be on the books. Thanks to Doug drafting up something that was short and sweet instead of, long that we've had in the past with information. So if you, anything you want to say about it, Doug, because you're the one that really.
Well, for those of us in the room, it corresponds to the map above my head, the purple.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
So those are the parcels, the south of 5 and 20 that would fall into the scenic view shed overlay. And essentially, what I heard the ordinance committee, and jump in here, but what I heard the ordinance committee say is they want to, in that purple area, try to limit as much as possible townhomes, apartments, multifamily housing like that. And so the gist of this is to require a minimum size of 1 acre lots to try to prevent apartments, townhomes, multifamily homes in that purple area in the scenic viewshed overlay.
In this map right here,
The
No, this one
this
here.
that one over there.
So it's visible from the water.
Yep.
All right,
Oh, so it's scenic.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot more costly for somebody to develop, so. Economics being what they are,
well, hopefully, yeah.
hopefully it helps that, plus some of the other measures we've taken, the subdivision, the conservation subdivision change that we made is very significant, so.
Mhm.
Combination of these two should really preserve.
Have to preserve the
a lot
rural
of that,
character.
I know I've gotten emails from a couple of residents, including Robin Evans and others that have been what I would call very supportive of us doing something. They were very much in favor of this approach.
Great.
So again, this resolution sets the public hearing on it. It doesn't actually adopt the law, obviously, but it sets the public hearing on it. Okay, next one is acceptance of the annual report from the planning board. They're required to provide that. The next one is the next one is the one that I had emailed you guys about because I needed to provide a response to the county immediately that day. It was right after we did that special meeting about the TAP grant application and our commitment of $36,000 for the sidewalks for County Road 50 to CMAC along 364. So supporting that. The next resolution, I want to
Oh,
read through this, but this consolidates that Andrews Road Water District into Canandaigua Farmington Water District of the town of Canandaigua. All right, I'm going fast. Any questions on any of those? No,
No, in fact, then that was discussed at the
right.
Yeah.
joint water meeting the other night, so.
The next one is a proposal from MRB for building programming and concept design study services for Motion Junction. So this is actually to design, I should say, the building and the building placement and all of that.
Building programming.
So building programming, we've done this a couple times now with MRB. You come in with your ideas of what things should look like by square footage, dimensions. They come up with the plan of what it looks like, and they give you the cost, and you go back and go, oh, I can't really afford all that square footage. Let's rethink what we really can afford. We did that a couple of times with the highway building. It worked out well for us to understand what our,
Drives cost and-
yeah, well, like, okay, if we really want this big building, we really can't afford it. So what do we really want versus what do we need? Wants versus needs. So at the end of the day, you have a practical square footage and cost to the building you're constructing.
So there's a
It's
couple,
to build it.
well,
this
it's
thing?
to design, not build,
Design.
just design. But
Yeah.
there's a couple of other pieces with this particular one that's a little unique. So the group that was raising the money, Think Big Inclusion and Motion, they were always raising money to be able to construct a pavilion with ADA restrooms, and it was done, the design, a lot of the design work for that was done by the University of Buffalo's Idea Center. The trouble that Jim has run into in the ground the whole entire time is you had University of Buffalo Idea Center, you had Parkitex, the company that was actually doing the playground, you had the group, and then you had our engineer, and you had all these pieces and the puzzle didn't actually come together.
Right.
And it was constant change and everything else. So we're like, time out. Before we get into the building design and all that, let's have our town engineer be the lead, all the information go to them and bring this all together so we know exactly what we're doing. There's another piece to this also is because Think Big Inclusion and Motion wasn't able to raise all the money needed to construct this big pavilion. This looks at this new structure in two phases, with phase one being a smaller pavilion with ADA restrooms, but designed and laid out in such a manner so that phase two could be a seasonal building, kind of almost like an L shape, right? That would still flow nicely and be able to be incorporated when all said and done into one nice building, providing both outdoor and indoor space. So there's a variety of moving pieces there.
The highway building, we worked with MRB for quite a while, and Jim had the idea of what we needed, you know, from a concept standpoint, and then there's also this thing called reality out here that,
Mhm.
you know, we could spend this much, maybe, so that back and forth, the different iterations that come out, you finally wind up with, that'll serve our purposes, but then what we project our budget to be, and in this case, it worked out very well.
Right.
So at the end of spending $16,000, what will we end up having? A design,
Yeah.
not a plan, because
No.
that's really requiring a lot. more
Right.
Architect work or whatever.
We have pretty good site plan, I think, at this point, but this would be
You're gonna get rendering.
laying the
Lay
design,
the
right?
design out, what's gonna look like first floor, if there's a second floor, what it could look like at the end of the day for the construction, and what they can use, what their square foot costs are today for each item we're looking for. So instead of us, again, as Terry said, we want 8,000 square feet, we're going in 4 and 5. You know, it brings you, gives you a realistic look at what you can afford and what you can get.
So-
So does compromises that, you know, ultimately, everybody agrees on it. so.
Right.
The other big thing with all of this, and we've learned this a lot as we've been going through this process, the building as well as the entire playground either has to be inclusive and it's not only ADA, it takes ADA to another level. It has to be inclusive for everyone or no one.
Right.
So like,
Non-stop
even the
cover.
building, excuse me, right, even like in the building, all the different pieces and everything, it has to, somebody in, for instance, a wheelchair has to be able to have the same exact experience as somebody who's not.
Okay.
So there's,
Well, I love that we're doing it. I mean, I feel like we're learning so much from this whole about inclusive.
well, and then just the money side, just since we're talking about this, so the plan, kind of pie in the sky plan here is that we get that grant money for the rubberized material, that $350,000. That then enables us to use that for the rubberized material, and then they take that money
Motion
that they had
picture
run
takes that,
and puts it towards the building.
right. And so, I mean, do we have a way for them to pay for that part of it? I mean, I know they pay for a lot of this already, but pay for part of the building and then for us, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so
We don't
we'll,
usually have outsiders paying our bills for us. It's
Right.
kind of a weird situation.
it is, and that's where really what Jim was saying, like the design and stuff, we need to know exactly the costs are right
Yeah.
first. And then they're gonna keep raising money too. And then if there's other, whether there's other
Amendments,
grant monies
yeah.
or whatever that we can get to help
Okay.
with all of that. Yeah,
It's gonna definitely be a showplace.
I think I've mentioned to you guys before, I've had conversations with folks from Cleveland affiliated with the Cleveland Clinic that are very interested in normalized bus routes here to Motion Junction. Actually, next Wednesday, Mike Bentley and I have a webinar with the Texas League of Municipalities about Motion Junction. And then most recently, we actually featured it in our DRI application, our presentation, joint between the town, city, and LDC. And then most recently, I've had interest from a group in Tennessee that had heard about Motion Junction. And it was also very interesting to me when we were doing the DRI presentation yesterday, some of the individuals, the judges, had actually heard of Motion Junction, and they were like nodding up and down when I was talking about it. So it's really interesting, the attention it's
Yeah.
getting, so.
So in my next life, when I can do what I really, where my heart lies, I'm working on an inclusive skating program at the rink.
Oh, cool.
It's called Gliding Stars, and we've gotten grants for it. And we're also hoping that it becomes a destination when you can't go, might not be able to go to the park. We'd be able to go skating. So we have a coach, we have volunteers. We have a grant to buy equipment, and we're working, I just met with that woman on Monday, so that could be a good tie-in to this as well.
Absolutely, Kathy, that's awesome because, and really, we mentioned this yesterday. We really see that area shaping up from a planning perspective as a recreation destination. You're gonna have Motion Junction Outhouse Park, you're gonna have the Civic Center, you're gonna have the YMCA, all on the same side of the road, all adjacent to each other. And then the Auburn Trail coming down through there also. I mean, there's so many different components. And then the accessibility is another piece that we need to work on of connecting uptown, that whole 332 area down to this
Yeah,
recreation
right,
area.
sidewalks.
Right. So as people, I took a picture last week of a gentleman in a wheelchair on the side of Outhouse Road. As a side note, I think we need to look at Outhouse Road at some point from a
Get it aside.
inclusivity perspective, especially with the,
Is it the
There's
road that goes
always
through the park?
people.
yeah,
People drive through there way too fast.
they do. And especially with people in wheelchairs and everything else and this
I mean, it's
this
like a raceway,
motorized
'cause it's
scooter.
great.
Right. Yeah.
We have asked to have the speed limit reduced there, but.
Doesn't
it's been
matter.
watered Down by the state, so.
Yeah. But that's awesome, Kathy, because that fits right in with everything that's going on there. That's that whole area right there. That's awesome. So,
Then, I mean, it's funny, but Outhouse Road at that point is a park road. And so I don't know why we have to ask the state. It's a road inside our park. We should be able to control that.
No,
it's a public.
it's not how it works, so.
It isn't how it works, but it's crazy. It's fully contained by our park.
It is.
And the safety of people is paramount. So the state keeps turning us down. What do they think? What do they think our goal is by reducing the speed limit? That they're not supportive of it. It makes me sick every time we ask for one, they say no.
My suggestion there would be, I know it's currently, say, I think it's around 28 feet wide. I would give it a road diet, knock it down to 22 feet wide with curbing. And then give yourself a wide sidewalk on the park side where you can get to a sidewalk, narrow the road up. Don't allow people to pull off to the side like we do now, are some of my thoughts. Will it slow down people? Probably not,
Probably not.
but
So the big thing, so I can tell you from so many years with Brian Kolb, and I would go with municipalities and we would go to DOT and we'd say, okay, this municipality wants to lower the speed limit. And I remember even doing this for Outhouse Road and time after time after time after time. Just hear it so many times. I heard this said, DOT would say, we won't lower the speed limit less than the current prevailing rate of speed on the road.
Right.
So until the municipality does something to force the cars down, we won't lower the speed limit because the speed limit in and of itself isn't going to reduce the speed of the vehicles. So if the municipality does something to reconstruct the road, whether it's putting in curves, whether it's putting in medians, whether it's putting in planters, dig feel or vertical elements or all these other things, until the municipality does that, have a nice day. I mean, I've heard it so many times. So if we want to get serious, we have to reconstruct Outhouse Road and then they'll allow us to lower the speed limit.
Right.
Maybe we should just dig a whole bunch of potholes.
Yeah, right. Get very unattractive
You put
too.
speed
No more
bumps.
resurfacing of that road.
I don't think so. I don't think you can't do speed bumps anymore, right? They don't.
okay, so.
Well, but there's a huge plowing issue,
Right.
right?
There's
Yeah.
plowing issues
right.
and there's also signage and road striping that has to be done prior to
Yeah.
each one. I'm not a,
I think, here's a way
No,
to
I
make
forgot about
people,
the plowing
let's
and
just
that. That's
constantly
okay.
stone and gravel it. People will be complaining all over. about it.
Yeah.
Now driving.
When I was in Brazil, they had like D's in the road,
okay,
so you hit them going full speed, you really did a number on your car. So
Uh-oh.
it's-
It's scary.
mhm.
All right, well, we're solving the problems with
Yeah.
campers here.
Right, there's a lot of work and money to fix that issue, but
But one thing is, we were talking about all the recreation along that side of the road. At the events committee meeting, we have been discussing outdoor ice skating in the winter. I mean, it just feels like that's another way for people to enjoy our parks. And if there's some way to create a place that could be easily flooded, or a pad that could be easily flooded or something so that we could have that, it could even be inclusive then. to Kathy's, as people learn at the Civic Center, then if it was near Motion Junction, it could be part of the whole inclusivity area that we're.
The inclusive thing is, as you could imagine, it's very, very specific with training and equipment and skates.
Oh, right, yeah, to start it off, but somebody who enjoys it may want to do it
Oh, yeah.
with everyone else outside.
And of course, there are different levels of, need in terms of the skaters.
So one of the things just kind of keep in mind also, in addition to all of this with the Auburn Trail coming across in the airport, I know when we did the Parks and Rec master plan, we talked about the possibility of adding a parking lot adjacent to the Civic Center in Outhouse Park there for two reasons. Number one, well, actually, we really need it for three reasons now. Number one, a place where people can park and then jump on the Auburn Trail, go walk along the Auburn Trail, go see the airplanes coming and going. Number two, there's a fair amount of larger events at the Civic Center that they could also utilize that extra parking space. And I know we've had conversations over the years with the Civic Center about that. Number three, we now are being told that we are going to need to plan for bus parking for Motion Junction. So the buses to be able to drop off at Motion Junction and then be able to park over there and sit over there. And Happiness House has the same exact issue with buses. So it could provide, it'd be a nice community benefit to provide all that. And then if you want to talk about after we get to that point, outdoor ice skating or something or other, that might be a good spot, especially if it's something that could be teamed up with the Civic Center or even the field that's over next to Motion Junction. There's a couple of different spots where maybe that could all tie in together there.
There's a pond back there that kids play hockey on already. Is that
Yes.
not?
Yeah, that one's fairly shallow.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
think
and I'm sure the Civic Center will help out in any way.
Yeah, the thing we were thinking about was, ponds can sometimes have a depth that could become dangerous or whatever, but if it was on a pad or on a area that was easily flooded and didn't leak out all the water, then it could be something that isn't so,
Freeze quicker.
liability. But anyway, just to bring it up, so that's in people's minds, because I have a short term on this board. And I want to get the ideas out there.
Next resolution is, Jim, it's you. It's the emergency response.
This is per the DOH, state DOH, requiring the town to update our emergency response plan and our vulnerability assessment and having goals set for the next 3 years of items we need to improve upon for cybersecurity and the update of our SOPs. So we worked with Greg Hoteling and his staff. A couple of drafts have gone to the DOH. The last one they have approved for us to allow to be voted upon. The public version will be available. There's a redacted version that's for our staff to view. So there's things in there that we don't want necessarily the public to know where things are. And there's things in there that the public can have access to.
Don't want to advertise vulnerability.
Correct.
And so, the goals that we're establishing here, we need to make sure that they're factored into our capital plans and whatever, because I'm assuming that certain things are gonna have like a cost to implement, or, cybersecurity seems to often have, well, we need a new server, or we need this, or we need that. And I'm not saying that all of them, but I mean, that's the watch out in something like this, is as you establish goals, make sure they get factored into those other plans so that we plan to spend whatever you need to do that.
Fencing, signage, cameras.
Yeah. all that into budgets.
Eventually SCADA system.
Skate, that stuff, I don't, encryption, stuff like that. I mean, that's something that just simple stuff we can do, the other stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to necessarily ask the right questions without having someone to direct us.
Right, yeah, no, I know, this kind of stuff is tricky, I mean, it's a specialty that most of us never dreamed of.
Right.
Do you know where we're at with the Homeland Security?
Thinking about that, and I have not. received
Sarah-
an update.
Sarah's the one who's leading that for us, but we received a a $50,000 Homeland Security grant to do a vulnerability assessment of the town, but of our operations essentially, but that included the water.
Right.
And so that has actually been the biggest chunk of time and truthfully, the biggest holdup. It's nothing to do with Jim. It's the technology that controls our water system, that they're evaluating all of that and running tests on that and everything else. And
And they were
so,
worried about crashing the system.
right,
So-
which in and of itself, all of a sudden is, if you're worried about when you test it, crashing it, that's a
Right.
vulnerability.
That's a vulnerability. So, yeah.
So,
correct.
yeah, I think
I
we've
haven't heard about
identified a
that either.
pretty large vulnerability there that,
All right.
okay, so this next resolution, so this is the Canandaigua Shores application. I just want to make sure everybody understands which one this is.
Okay.
This is them requesting an extension on their ability to get approval from the planning board. So as you know, the town board, the first step in the MUO process, authorizes them to go work with the planning board to get site plan approval.
Do you remember when we did that?
Well, so the 180 days expires at the end of this October. So it's 180 days.
Yeah.
And they have not received approval yet. They're nowhere anywhere near close getting site plan approval, in my opinion, from the planning board. So they need more time. So this is pretty traditional that we have in the past granted these extensions for them to work with the planning board, but that's all this does, is it grants them an extension. It doesn't grant them any sort of approval, just to work with the planning board.
Really 180 days.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just curious, what happens if we didn't? They would have to do the process all over again?
Yeah, they would have to start over, essentially, because then they would not be able to, oh, I'm sorry, this is a 90-day extension. This isn't 180 day. I just was looking at that. So yes, Kathy, they would have to start over the whole process all over again, come in, make application to the MUO, which would then have to get referred, starting everything all over again. I would be concerned because routinely we've always granted these extensions. So
No,
it
I
would
was
be a
just,
little-
I was just curious. Like,
Right,
I would like to know what the opposite is of,
not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Why would you make them go through all that? If you're gonna get the same stuff all over again.
Well, and the planning board, I feel like is making progress with them.
Yeah. That's the only
Well,
reason.
So, but
Because there's,
wait, the opposition was to the original plan, right? So, and it took them forever to come in with a revised plan that's still not completely done yet. But I have not heard near the same amount of objection to the revised plan. The revised plan, the original plan basically was a straight road all the way up and over that connected to Hopewell. And it was all these townhouses and everything all over it, right? Right, yeah, that's essentially what it was. So the revised plan actually is there's this loop down closest to the road. And then there's townhomes along that loop, okay? And then what they told us is that the road is not going to connect to Hopewell. It's going to only go up partial. And then there's going to be a hammerhead. Then there's going to be 2 single-family homes up at the very tippy top, which would actually fall into the new view shed area on that parcel. So it's, I know even when I had a conversation with the gentleman from Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association, Lou, no, Stephen Lewandowski.
he's not affiliated with us.
Oh, okay. So, I didn't realize it. So,
He used to be.
he's come in many different times looking at it and he keeps saying, well, it's getting better. It's getting better, and so they're delineating wildlife corridors and open space. And, the first plan was terrible. The first plan didn't even meet the town code. There was not even ability for them to even get approval on any of that. So they're making progress, but just like a lot of the developers, they're stubborn. And I feel like we have to tell them something 100 times. And it's a lot of wasted time because they don't bring in exactly what we tell them to bring in. So that's part of why it's taken so long, and they're working through the planning board with that process.
Wasn't there some sort of requirement that that parcel would have, if there's enough, that they need 2 exits or entrances? For some reason, I thought I saw some about
No, if you
No?
go back, not for that parcel, if you go back a certain distance, then it requires 2 points of egress.
Right. And I honestly still don't know if they can even get water to that height in the event of a fire flow and maintain 20 PSI in the system. So, I mean, they may want to go higher. I don't know if we have the ability to do that.
I think that's why they've switched off to the 2 single
they-
family homes,
Okay,
I believe. And then they say they're able to service those from Hopewell side. That Hopewell's gonna approve that, but
okay.
And
They're
are
gonna
those
bring water
two,
down the hill rather than try to push it up the hill.
yeah, I think what they want to do is push it up to a certain point,
20,
right?
right,
And then,
Yeah.
Maybe 2 separate systems. then?
yes.
and the
yeah.
homes are in Hopewell and not in Canandaigua?
no, town of Canandaigua.
Oh, but they're trying to source water from the, for the
It's
homes
like
for a
right
different place
down.
from the.
Yeah,
townhomes?
it's right, it's this piece of property. It's that final piece of property. So that's Hopewell, that's Gorham, and that's Canandaigua. It's where they all meet. So those 2 single family homes, they want to put them as close to the Hopewell town line basically as they can.
Right.
Because then they're also building a whole housing development on that other parcel that it backs up to in Hopewell.
Mhm.
There's what, 8,
8,
I think
8 or 10.
approximately, yeah, something like that on that piece.
But the road won't connect. It'll be coming in off,
364 and then
So-
18.
Yeah, supposedly Hopewell's not going to allow it to
Right.
connect, and what they told us is that they're only gonna go up so far with the townhomes, and then they're gonna put a hammerhead, and then be 2 private drives.
And what's the change in the number of places?
It was reduced from the original. I don't know the number off the top of my head, because I know one of the things they even added was like a community center and a whole variety of different things. I mean, it's still very much an active plan with changes as they're working with the planning board.
This, one of the things that I thought was interesting, because their words said, hey, this is for empty nesters, but then every address had 4 parking spaces, so it made me think they were really going after student housing or something, you know what I mean? Because empty nesters, typically, each house wouldn't need more parking spaces.
No, the revised plan I saw definitely doesn't have 4 parking
Per-
places
per
per
unit.
unit. There's some extra parking down near the road for like visitor parking and those sorts of things, but this is more like a loop is what I would say, with the houses kind of built along the loop. And most of the houses you actually won't be able to see from 364, because that's a weird, it doesn't, it's hard to tell from looking at a map, but that piece of property, when you're standing on 364 and looking at that piece of property, it actually goes down. And so where a lot of these things are, would be down, it's down before it turns and goes back up.
Mhm.
So the single family homes would be built up, and a lot of the townhouses would be built like kind of on the downside.
Like the actual sanitary sewer is way off the road, and that
Yeah.
basically follows we'll call it gully, for lack of a better term.
Mhm.
So it goes down like this first, then comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
They
I
have a
mean,
lot more work to do.
Yeah,
Wonder if 90 days is enough time.
I wouldn't be surprised if
it
the
doesn't
answer
seem
is
like it's
no,
gonna be-
but
It feels like
No.
they're gonna be back for another extension.
There's no limit on the number of extensions that can be given. So
correct. But the code says 90 days at a time, right? So the new deadline, here it is in the resolution, would be January 22nd, 2022. And part of that, I think, and I've had conversations with Chuck about this, and this one in particular, and Shauna. Part of that also allows the planning board to use that kind of as a stick. Hey, we told you we want you to do this. You got to get this done because your extension is only good until January.
and there's no guarantee that the future board would say, okay, then. 90 days.
Right. Yeah. Oh, Kathy, I don't know if you want to touch base on this next resolution. This is that resolution that you and I kind of talked about relative to the ad hoc committee of the county. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that or not.
I have not.
So the gist of this is, and Kathy, feel free to jump in here, but the gist of this is the county created an ad hoc committee that was concerned about planning and development, generally speaking, across the county. Is that fair to say on the major arteries? It sounded like, and they had sent out a letter. I know we had emailed that, Kathy had emailed that out to you all a while ago. And so Kathy, where does that committee, are they still kind of like reviewing, getting responses?
You know, the only information I got was when we first got that letter, it told me who was on the committee and they had just sent that out. I don't even know if they're still meeting on this.
Gotcha.
So it met, but it wasn't transparent as I read through this. Is that what happened? They had an ad hoc committee that wasn't meeting in public places?
No, I think it was, but I didn't find out about it until we got that letter. And then I asked about it, and then we had, I hadn't heard anything else about it, so I will follow up to see what the status is of it.
So the gist of that letter that I took away from that was they were concerned about long-term planning by municipalities in looking at development, maybe even implying that some municipalities don't really have long-term planning and are just kind of accepting developments willy-nilly as they come along. I mean, was that fair to say, Kathy? I think generally speaking, I think that's kind of what I took from that letter. So the
Yeah.
resolution here just kind of shares a lot of our strategic planning, a lot of our planning that we've done so that they're aware. Even calls out the 5 points that were identified with the strategic planning session that we held on September 22nd. And just shares that information.
And they
Doesn't-
were, I'm sorry, they were looking,
Okay.
specifically looking for input from the towns that were affected by their comments, so. Nothing else has happened as far as, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on at the county, so this wasn't, didn't really come up again after that.
And then the resolution also references our recent appointment of the town planner to serve as the town of Canandaigua's representative at the county planning board. Already, I'm seeing improved communication, truthfully, because of that. That's helping where Sean is able to explain kind of some of the things that are going on at the town, at the county planning board level so that there's better communication. So.
Better linkage.
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys have heard, but Suzanne Berry was originally going to take Mike Manikowski's position when he retires, but she has since declined. So that whole situation is a little in flux. They're looking for someone to take that position.
Have an application process that we've seen.
And that's it. No more resolutions.
Okay.
How is the agenda smaller and it still took us an hour to go through it? I don't understand that. So-
Alright. One thing that we've been talking about at some board meetings repeatedly, and we are somewhere, is we were thinking of employee appreciation. We have not done it. So I keep feeling like we should discuss this and we should have a plan.
Linda, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Sorry, we were talking about employee appreciation multiple times, but we haven't done anything and we need to have a plan. So I was hoping that we could spend 5 or 10 minutes here making a mini plan and actually do something about it. This is a legitimate meeting. We have 4 of the town board members here. We can do something.
Yeah.
So, I feel like we could do the highway barn like we have.
Mhm.
We can bring in some catered food, as long as we have room in the budget, and have an employee recognition event.
Okay,
I mean, it's essentially just a lunch, as we've done in the
Right.
past, but, you know, it's a nice opportunity to say thank you for all the work. Get out ahead of the winter season,
Mhm.
where I know your people are crazy busy and unpredictably not available,
Right.
but we can make sure that people are available. So what does everyone think?
Sounds
I
good to me.
agree with that. Do it before the snow fly, yeah. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
Right,
You got a few weeks
Okay.
coming here that.
Everybody agrees, but what does the town board want to do?
okay, so I'm thinking that the week of November 8th, is that a week that starts? Sometime during that week, we do a luncheon.
Okay,
And then I'm not sure what are the easy places to get the food from.
What about
you know,
food
easy and good. What?
You want to see if you could get food trucks to have a couple of different. That's a very popular option now with COVID, getting a couple of different food trucks to come in. I mean, cost would have to be determined ahead of time. of
I
course.
just wonder if they can, kind of get through enough people, like the food trucks tend to make their food like one at a time.
Right.
And
Yeah, but if
so,
you have multiple ones, you like have a, different ones. I mean, I've seen it done for a lot of events lately because of, not wanting to have necessarily like hot trays with people serving food over them and fresh made food, but just an
yeah,
idea.
I think people do like the food trucks. The only thing I like about the serving it is the town board gets to serve and thank the people individually.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the fact that we're wearing our gloves and our hairnets and face shields obviously now, or, but it gives us a chance to at least say, hey, thanks, we appreciate everything you've done. And if they're individually scattering to things, I don't know if we really get that same opportunity. I don't know. That's just, maybe I'm set in my way about that, but I've always liked the fact that when we have done it in the past, we're actually being the people who are serving them instead of them serving us, which is what's happening 365 days a year.
Okay,
Any ideas
yeah, well, we can
We have food catered brought in.
brought in and we can,
Keep it on,
right,
just like home, that's all.
Is the town paying for that?
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
sure,
Okay.
Yeah, we've done it pretty routinely most years, but with COVID, we took a break from it. And we,
I didn't know if there were state laws that
So you can't
prohibited you
feed your
from using
employees.
funds for that.
No.
just can't serve them booze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The booze truck has to be off to the side.
Off our property, huh?
Yeah.
I think the 10th or 11th.
The 11th's a holiday.
Oh, well, that's,
Veterans Day, careful.
oof. Let me ask the question. And the only reason,
Could be the following week.
it might, and the reason is, it's getting towards the end of the year. A lot of guys don't take vacation,
And they hunt
Oh.
and
and they
Yeah.
hunt, so they may. Let me ask the question and get back to you, okay, because I'd rather try to have as many there as possible to recognize them,
Right.
but not have, 6 or 8 of them off because it's a short week and they're hunting, so. I'll find out,
Okay.
Yeah, maybe by Monday we
and,
can
Yeah,
come up with it.
I think something like Tuesday the 9th.
okay,
It's not right next to a weekend, so if somebody was taking a long weekend, they're more likely to be back.
okay,
And then it's not next to the holiday, which is another way they might try to tag it on, if the
Okay.
holiday is the 11th. And the end of the week gets into their holiday weekend, people are
Okay.
stacking up their
Then you got
vacation
Thanksgiving.
time.
Yep.
So let's say Tuesday the 9th, and then, who do you think would be good at figuring out which place to order from?
I mean. Cost is good, Eric's is good, Green Front is
We had,
good,
we had Kathy do, my daughter had things for me in the summer. Joe does a great job catering, so.
Casa Italiana,
No, Kathy.
the pasta.
Casa de Pasta.
Mhm.
He had quite a good, good barbecue menu, a good,
I ordered from Casa last year for the highway guys. They did a nice job.
Yeah, so. Okay,
I know if you wanted more hot type food, Prosecco's does a very nice thing too. Obviously, that would be a little bit more money, but
The Green Front does. My brother had a
but
graduation party and they brought, theirs was really good.
yeah, we just did that for their down on the park.
yeah, we
For
had
the,
that, that was from there.
yeah.
Yeah, that was,
Green Front was there with food, so, okay,
Yeah, a bunch. to choose
how about,
from, really.
I'll speak with Caitlin and then Caitlin could speak with Lindsay. And they could figure out a menu and put together.
So
Does that
Lindsay,
sound
would you
fair?
work with Caitlin about sourcing the food for us? Would that be
Okay.
something that you're able to?
Try a couple of them and see who you get the
Right.
best deal from.
Well,
about
All
kicks?
right, so I
Do
just
they
want
do
to be,
that stuff?
I just want to be careful because when we originally, and Gene brought this to us, it was the town board organizing this and not the staff organizing this, okay? So yes, so we know we need to help you because there's no way you're gonna be able to do
Right,
this
and
on
there's
your
no way
own.
We know how to issue it. There's no way,
Right. So
Oh,
we
we
want to
can
help,
show
but
you.
we want to make sure that you guys are the lead on this and not staff.
I don't wanna learn.
Yeah, but I mean, so Caitlin and Lindsay can absolutely help and stuff, but we want to make sure it's the town board that's leading this and the town, board. This is the town board doing this and thanking.
Okay,
Absolutely.
all right.
So, saying that, what do you really say? You
Linda,
want
I
to
think you
tell them?
volunteered yourself.
What?
I think you volunteered yourself.
It sounds like Linda's doing the work.
I think
The event committee.
you know, I'm Simon, it'll be nice.
Are you all cooking now?
I'd be happy to work on it.
Okay,
So I can, if you tell me, we need to know how much money.
How many people?
And those barbecues that were in the past, Linda, a lot of times they were sponsored by the Republican Party. Those bigger ones were paid for by the Republican Party. So obviously we're not doing that. But so we have to, I know the county does the employee appreciation picnic. So from that perspective, I'm sure it's fine.
Well, we have a ton of money in contingency, so I don't think money's the issue. It's
No,
just a
that's
matter of.
It was.
Me- me-
Every time you talk about it, we all nod. And every time we nod, nothing ever happens.
True.
And like I said, I'm a short timer. I felt like that was one of the guilty feelings I had. I want to get rid of that guilt before I leave.
So
And
Linda, you and I are both short timers, so why don't we both work on it?
That sounds like a great plan.
all right.
And yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lindsay can be very helpful for you and I'm
Caitlin
sure
can help
Caitlin
also,
can
yeah.
organizing with the highway guys and all
Right.
that
Well,
stuff,
We
but
need to know the number of people, that are expected.
well, you're
That's
realistic. I
hard
mean,
for us
that's,
to gather up.
I mean, you're probably talking what, 60 people, Lindsay, plus or minus 60 to 70
Yeah.
people, I would say.
Somewhere around there.
And some sort of idea of whether you would think hot foods or sandwiches or a combination thereof would be
We
appreciated.
skipped a year. I feel like it's gotta be hot food. We're not
Hot
gonna just
food.
throw
Oh,
a
yeah.
sandwich at them.
Right.
That feels like it
Terry,
isn't,
Terry will tell you what he likes, okay?
well, anything is nice. I just feel bad that with COVID, we didn't do a thing.
Okay,
And so it's been 2 years since we have really done something and time to.
And I think everybody would be very appreciative. And I really like the idea of honestly, you guys serving the employees, because I think they would appreciate the one-on-one. Even if it's just a thank you, I think they would appreciate that.
Yeah, I feel like that's the reason why I feel strongly that rather than having them scattered to different, kind of locations, it's better to have a line where, although it's worse for COVID, but, hopefully by now, the community is starting to get over it. Okay, that was the only thing I had brought in additional to the meeting.
As long as we're taking these excursions, I had some people ask me about the sidewalk in County Road 10. Coming from,
Yep.
apartments down to like
Mhm.
all these areas.
Mhm.
Plaza. So-
It's required as before they start phase 2. They're just waiting for the approval from the state. And they said they're actually going to do that prior to them even starting the construction of the apartments.
Yeah.
But it's actually in the conditions of approval. Creekview's doing it.
That's what I thought, but
Yeah.
it's not there.
Well, because phase 2 hasn't,
phase 2.
But you have people living there.
I know.
In phase
I
one.
saw a guy with the walker trying to negotiate
Yep.
that area going down and that.
Yep.
Are they
Yeah.
getting close to phase 2?
Well, yeah, they're ready to go. We actually have a meeting with them next week. I think it is.
Put the sidewalks in. Tell me.
Is it-
We've asked that repeatedly in different things, but it's because of the way the funding is done and it's the federal, it's just like all this other stuff with the NEPA and all this other, it's not quite that simple. So it's these tax credits and everything else. The last 3 times they've applied, the state has actually turned them down. That's why it hasn't moved forward. They're ready to go.
Down in phase 2, you mean?
Yes, yeah, the tax credits.
You know why?
And for any number, that's, the state changed the program was actually the big last piece of it. The state changed the whole program and then kicked them out and said, that what they were trying to do didn't qualify, but now they think they've got a workaround. That's why we're meeting with them next week. So,
So there won't be any sidewalks this year.
no.
And there may never be.
No, there will be. I mean, they're
Okay, well,
gonna
I'm
do
just
all
saying if
4
they get picked
phases.
out and they're
No.
just trying to get back in.
No, because they'll go under a different program or whatever, and they're committed to doing that. I mean, even when we did remember when we did the ribbon cutting over there, and I even said something from the podium, and John DeMarco pulled me aside afterwards. He's like, I promise you, I'll put those sidewalks in, but I need it has to be part of phase 2, the way that the financing and the structure and the tax credits and stuff. Yeah,
The people live there, it's not good enough answer.
I know. It's,
Is there
yeah.
any maintenance that can be done on that? I mean, there is.
That's how
kind of a
they're,
path.
We have done stone dust to it, probably. Let's
Well, wait, it
let's
wasn't us,
ask,
was it? It wasn't us. It was them.
It was a little bit of both of us to get
Yeah.
it done between the water main and stuff that we did
Yeah.
through there, so. Let's see how the meeting goes next week, Terry. We could place some coal mix asphalt through there,
Mhm.
like we have on Middle Cheshire Road, and
That'd be
And
better.
I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up
So-
again, obviously. And they know, I mean, we email them back and forth
Well-
about it pretty regularly.
I see Paul all the time, he's married to my cousin, so. Paul Colucci is
Hmm.
one of DeMarco's,
Oh, okay.
so.
Yeah.
Put pressure on them.
Okay.
Well, and just so you know,
They have a
so,
lot, yeah.
so, Joel lives on the Gorham Canandaigua town border. He's up and down the area all the time. He's a frequent, pretty much most any Thursday night, you can go into Laguna Grande and talk to him. And he's actually very interested in that whole area. He's maybe even interested in buying the plaza and continuing a whole extension up through there. He's very committed to getting it all done and wants to do it at a very efficient manner and a very nice facility.
Who is this guy?
DeMarco,
Marco.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
And where does he live? That is that Woodland project.
He's literally on the Canandaigua Gorham town border.
Okay.
So,
The Canandaigua Gorham border and the lake.
mhm.
Yeah.
I would think so.
Correct.
What plaza does he want to buy?
Not up
The one where
Yes.
Taco Bell is, where Taco Bell is.
Laguna Grande would be good
Oh,
lunch.
Oh, yeah,
That'd be
there's
nice.
another
I mean, they're,
option.
Be gluten-free
they're a
too,
good
right?
developer.
Or something.
Mhm. Yeah.
And what about Laguna Grande? They're a town.
It's your choice.
Well,
You're,
I'm just saying-
you're in charge.
You tell me if your guys would-
They'll eat anything.
Yeah, they really do. That won't
Especially
eat
if
them
it's
first,
free,
is
right?
what I-
There's nothing, there's nothing they don't eat.
You can slow it down by roadkill.
I mean,
Jim, what are they doing on Westlake Road with
We know
the
those other two
stoplights?
do a really.
Oh,
good
that's the
job, so I
county.
hate to
Oh, okay.
take a
they're
risk, but
replacing
this is
shoulders
really
and
good.
putting in new
And it'll
cross
be
culverts.
gluten-free, right?
Because they were up on
Oh.
You do
Miller Hill and
pasta.
now they're further down.
They got like
Guys, I have to get going, so Linda, I will be in
See you,
touch.
the
Kathy.
cross culverts they gotta put in.
Pardon?
They got like the 12 of them to put in. So,
Right.
yeah.
So should we adjourn the meeting?
Sure. So
All right, adjourned. Thanks, Lindsay.
where are all these